changed on one source, but not the other. So that's what happened. Oh, well, we'll live. So anyways, this is Your Brand, Your Business. We took some time to do our own goal setting for this. We're going to take some time now to help you figure out how to do it with yours. Well, Ernest suggests.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Don't do the crotch cam. There we go.
Don't do the crotch. No? Okay.
No, or the controller cam if you're a speedrunner.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm Galen Herbst. I'm a financial planner. Ernest Jones, who are you?
I am Ernest Jones. I'm a CPA. I work with broadcasters, game developers, anyone in the industry, either directly or that supports it with their tax planning and tax compliance needs.
Nice. And this is Noah, and Joe Biden would say that he represents billionaire creeps who come up with titles that teach you how to kill people. But Noah, who are you?
I'm a person.
I'm a terrible person. I'm Noah. I'm a lawyer, but I'm a cool lawyer. And I work in the game industry. So, I work with streamers, I work with game devs, I work with anybody who's trying to do anything here, including these two guys.
Nice. And we got a disclaimer. Thank you very much, JD. So yeah, today, like we said,
I should read that disclaimer.
Oh, you got to read it? Go read it.
Yeah, because according to the law, somebody might not be able to read it. So
okay,
I have to
that's
say
fair.
It.
We were just at a house thing, and apparently you can't say walking distance in a real estate listing because that is discriminatory against Americans who can't walk, and has been since '78. Well, that makes sense. I learned this. So go on.
Wow. Well, I've messed up. So basically, legal and tax information we give here is not legal and tax or accounting advice. It's for informational purposes only. So your individual circumstances might always change. And so we advise you, this is the only advice we're going to give you, is to consult a professional about your specific circumstances. That said, that's the legal equivalent of saying, don't try this at home. Go to a friend's house.
Exactly. All right. So like we said, today we wanted to talk about setting business goals in 2020. First of all, we wanted to talk a bit about why you set goals in the first place. And again, since I'm a financial planner and that's a good part of what I do with people in general, I'm going to let someone else say it so that I can tell them if they're wrong or not. Ernest.
To be disappointed when I come up short.
There you go. All right. That's one reason to set goals. Noah.
You should set goals because later on, when you are trying to figure out what you were trying to do, like finish the sentence, you know where you started.
Perfect. That's actually, both of those are pretty accurate. Goals give you something to strive for, right? Something to actually try and achieve, which for some people is very motivating. They also give you a comparison point because we often, especially in business, make goals based on the year, at least it's a starting unit of time. And that's a really long time and a lot changes in a year. So it can be really helpful to review your goals because you can see, what kinds of things just have changed over the past year. And it also can be really helpful because sometimes things that were like stretch goals a year ago, you surpass without even realizing it. They're like just a normal part of your day to day now.
So one of my goals a year ago was to con the two of you into letting me onto this show occasionally. And I overshot it. Now I'm a co-host.
Exactly.
So really, the joke's on me because I have all of the responsibility now.
We're going to make you actually host one soon so that you can mute your
own
mic.
No, you're not.
Perfect.
Yeah, so
what Noah doesn't know is our goal was to get him to take over the show so that Ernest and I could play Hearthstone instead. Or
Right. Yeah. But so that's one other bit of housekeeping is that Noah is now an official co-host of the show. We are changing the model for the show going forward because a goal we set last year was to do, I think, something like 35 to 40 shows, and we got pretty close, but then some life events came up that derailed it and a lot changed, And so I was moving, Galen and his beautiful wife had a child, and so a lot happened in 19 that kind of changed us. I don't think we hit that goal, but I think we got pretty darn close.
Yeah.
And so with that, we have 2 more shows scheduled. Next week is the Q1 financial checklist update. And then I think 2 weeks from there, we're going to be talking about how you attend cons and network. And then we'll go back into our caves and kind of put together another sort of 4 or 5 show topic list together.
Yeah.
And then that's a goal we have, right? Is that's kind of the thing. And we want to all be more accountable to each other and put together checklists and topic ideas and put on a more professional show, believe it or not. And so that's a goal that we have. And what we did was we had a meeting and we planned out, okay, well, what are the things that we need to do to make that happen? What are the pain points with putting on the show last year? And kind of how do we, market going forward? What worked last year, what didn't?
So basically what he tried to say is that we set a lot of goals and now we're talking to you about them.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly. So we, because of just sort of our general areas of expertise, we have a couple different types of goals that we want to talk about. One of the first, and this is one that we'll have Noah talk about a bit on the sort of legal administrative side. You're welcome.
I have to talk. Oh my God.
What are some of the basic things that, if they aren't already complete, a business owner and as we talked about a bunch of times on this before, if you're running a stream and earning income from it, you are a business owner. So what are some of the basics that someone should be looking at, either as a goal to check off, they haven't done it yet, or just again to double check whether or not they need to do anything additional with it?
Right. So when you're first starting off, the two basic things I'm going to tell you need to have are an LLC, which Ernest and I covered ad nauseum last week when we went over the California AB 5 regulation. In fact, here is a link to that, so you can check it out on your own time. And then I would also say you need to have a contractor agreement so you can make sure that you own the emotes and the overlays and everything that you hire people to make for your stream. So for example, if I hire Ernest to draw crude stick figures for all my emotes, then I want to make sure he signs a contractor agreement so that I own the rights to all of that, and I can use that without him interfering with that. Because he would try and bring me down.
And we've seen examples of streamers having big issues with that, right? I think I remember seeing probably a year ago at this point, Ammunition finding Herbst beautiful.
What did that say? Does it say Noah smells?
Finding her same basic emote, and I forget which one it was. It might have been her like Ann7, repeated with basically like palette color, color palette changes like 20 times, and that's a significant thing. That is something that she sunk resources, time, and effort into.
Became part of her brand.
Made it a part of her brand, and now someone else is just yoinking it. So having
They're
those kind of things
yoinking
in place, it's horrible when you get yoinked.
And we've talked about it before, but specifically any sort of art or anything that you've got commissioned for your stream, be it an overlay or emote, unless you have an agreement, it's considered, and Noah jumped down my throat if I've got this wrong, it's considered work for hire, and the rights do not convey over. Is that wrong?
Very, very close. So it is.
I knew I was wrong.
Hey,
it is
not my area of expertise, man. That's why I hear it.
Not considered a work for hire unless you expressly say it is, and you want it to be a work for hire. But generally, if I create something, I'm the artist, I own the rights to it. I might be able to give you an implied license, but I can withdraw that license at any time.
What is considered a work of art? Thank you. That's broadly recognized, though, in terms of what broadcasters would be utilizing. So emotes, overlays, would that cover?
Yeah. So
music as well.
We get into copyright there, and just a general. We're going to have a show at some point about basic intellectual property stuff. So stay tuned. But it's anything that's fixed in a tangible medium of expression. So you can't, like a fact can't be something that you copyright. But if I take a smiley face. If I draw a smiley face on a sticky note, then that's art. But a phone book that lists names of people in alphabetical order, that's not art. That's a phone book. Those are facts. You can't, copyright the topographical features of a map unless they're entirely made up. And so if you want to get a copyright on a map, you got to add sea creatures to it. So that's why you see that on a lot of old maps.
Where does Warhol come in this argument?
And bananas stapled to walls or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's art. But then, all right,
moving
We're getting
on.
off topic.
We broke Noah's brain. We'll move forward.
See, the problem here is that my wife has a degree in art history and is an artist herself, and I'm really hoping she's not home and can hear me just say, I mean, it's art.
Wow.
So
I love you.
We've actually gone into a bit of this next section, but what are some of the more advanced things that should be goals for your streaming business, things to accomplish if you haven't yet done them?
Yeah. So a lot of people, once they get their basics done, they get their LLC or whatever entity in place, they get a contractor agreement to make sure they own their stuff. We start looking at other options like getting a trademark for your name or your logo. That helps you prevent people from, say, going out there and using your name to sell their own stuff. For example, if I have a trademark for My Lawyer Friend with T-shirts and merchandise sales, because you have to do it by category. Then if somebody goes out there and starts selling my logo on a T-shirt and says, "This is the My Lawyer Friend, this is the My Lawyer Friend brand, this is the My Lawyer Friend shirt," then I can take them down for that. And if you want to see what that logo looks like, it's in chat. So I'm on point.
As you're on point. So we're talking about this because at the start of the year, you'll often hear the common resolutions, or whether it's I'm going to go to the gym more or whatever. It's I'm going to get organized when it comes to my business, right?
Right.
So how this relates to goal setting is these are the various legal check marks that you should be considering in terms of getting more organized and getting it buttoned up.
And a big part of the reason that we talk about doing this at least annually is because, say, for example, you are a streamer, you had your stuff trademarked, you used, your emotes were caricatures of your face, bears, that kind of a thing, and suddenly you all rebranded so that everything's mushrooms. Right? Say you'd done that in this past year. Suddenly you'd have a whole new set of things to trademark, right?
Yeah.
So doing this kind of annual review, even if it's a goal that you achieved before, can then give you something that you, again, need to redo, right? There are things that change. There are things that change even past accomplished goals.
Yeah, and also the reason you look at it yearly is because, for example, trademarks can take a lot of time. So at minimum, you're looking at a 6-month process to get a trademark done. So at maximum, it's potentially a 3-year process. And so it's something where you need to keep updated on the status and get it going as soon as you can. And that way you're able to, follow up and know what you were trying to accomplish and can figure out what some of your pain points are from year to year.
Mm-hmm. All right. Are there any other things that you want to make sure that people at least consider as goals for themselves in the coming year on the streaming side?
Yeah. So I would set the goal of getting your trademarks locked up, but also, regularly engaging in a contract review. So a lot of folks out there, I'm noticing, as contracts become more and more common because we are in a business. This is a true industry. A lot of people kind of fly by the seat of their pants and they say, "Oh, this looks good." But
in this industry, no.
Oh my God! You were going to give me white hairs. I've
already got them.
Yeah, that's because you're a father. But the regular contract review, not being afraid to work with your professionals to get things done and to make sure that you own you own everything you're doing, but you're not giving away too many rights. For example, I see a lot of streamers that'll sign contracts without checking the likeness clause, where they give away, rights to their likeness, which can include their face, their branding, their, voice, anything in there, use of that likeness in perpetuity to somebody who isn't paying for that. They're just going to pay you for like $100. So those are extremely valuable rights, especially in this industry where our likeness is one of the most important things we have. So a regular contract review. And also, finally, this one I would not have put on this list even 6 months ago. But I would make sure that whatever platform you're with, if it's Twitch, if it's Mixer, if it's YouTube, it's Facebook. I mean, if you're on caffeine, then caffeine. Then
if you're on caffeine, congratulations, you got a nice contract, a nice paycheck.
Yes, yep. And then or your TikTok, something like that, or Byte. Get your partner agreement reviewed. So on Twitch, that's the content license agreement. That's content license agreement for a lot of those, actually. But make sure you know what the term is on that, when it expires.
And I was just going to say no, so I'm going to go out on a limb here, and you tell me if it's wrong. I think every broadcaster, if you are full-time, you should have an Excel doc, a Google Sheet, or whatever that catalogs two things. Every active agreement you have, when it expires, and how soon you have to give notice if you want to term it.
Right.
And you should drop that into your calendar to remind you.
Right. If you have a
streamers using calendars.
Yeah, right. Content license agreement that expires with so your partner agreement with Twitch expires in May. You got potentially a 90-day termination notice on it. So you got to give 90 days advance notice, which is February. And so, right, that is math people. That's
I
math.
was laughing
Okay.
at Hunter saying, yes, that seems accurate.
Okay, just making sure. But so you want to know when that expires, what your rights are. Hey, that's a great time to, talk about renegotiation, getting a better split with Twitch, or, just making sure that you don't have any lingering offers out there. So,
All right,
As the meme goes, the streaming wars have begun, right?
yeah,
They
they're
sure
almost
have.
actually the streaming wars
Have
are
been
almost
done.
done at this point. I know, for example, YouTube Gaming is closing some of their acquisition periods. They're on the tail end of their big offers, and so is Facebook. Facebook is only working with huge people now. And so it is, we're almost on the tail end of the initial salvo. So,
all right, Ernest, you're up. What would be some goals that you would recommend or encourage people to set for their businesses that relate to your area of expertise?
So that area of expertise is where we are right now, tax season. Systems went live
do I have
last
to pay
Tuesday.
taxes?
Yes. Well, did you make money?
Probably not.
Then you probably not have to pay taxes.
Oh, good.
But the thing about it is, I will constantly have clients or people like, hey, I'm really going to make an effort this year to like be more organized, be more thoughtful about it, and stay on top of things. And that's a goal, right? So, but one thing that is anti-goal setting is an abstract goal. Like I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna do better this year. Well, what does that mean when it comes to your taxes? And that's stuff like better record keeping. So rather than waiting until this time to go through the last year and log all and categorize all of your expenses, do that now. Then the other thing is, hey, I'm going to file quarterly. So I'm going to make payments so I don't have to make a giant payment come April 15th. You may be delinquent on some old filings. You may have an IRS notice sitting around, right? And so
you should open those even if they're scary.
You should, and not just ignore them. I've had.
Hold on. You stumbled on your words there. I want to make sure we're very clear. You should not just ignore them.
You should not just ignore them. That is correct. For example, I had a broadcaster get assessed $24,000 from an IRS notice, and what that happened was the IRS was disallowing some sheltering they were doing because it was. Just disallowed. I can't give too many details away. So they gave me the notice. They waited a month, of course. But I called IRS, and it was just a mistake by IRS's part. It got flagged in the system some way, and it should never have been on the notice. And so, by addressing it then, they don't have the issue of IRS saying, look, you didn't respond. We closed your case. We've revised your tax return. Now you've got to amend and do all these other things that are much more costly. I think on all the panels I've seen you guys do and the ones we've done, we've always said, if you can do it on the front end, it will save you a lot of time and heartache at the end. I think both of you have seen that where, you've had a client tell you, hey, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do better. And then a year passes or 6 months passes. And they're like, yeah, man, I know, but like, yeet.
Well, that's a really good point, and this kind of dives straight into, for example, you and I had this conversation today. Last year, one of my colleagues and I were working on an endeavor together, and we waited to the last minute to get our taxes done, and we ended up needing to get an extension. We filed them late. And it was a nightmare. We didn't have any of our record keeping expenses, nothing done. And we ended up paying extra to that professional to get things done. Now, you and I talked today about this, and while we still are very cutting it under the wire a little bit, I think we're going to do better because we're engaging you now and looking forward.
Well, and it's that theory of like, there's that 3-tier matrix, right? Like, do you want to pay a lot and do you want it fast? Well, then, or what's the matrix? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Good, fast, cheap.
Good, fast, cheap. The good, fast,
cheap. You can pick two, good, fast, or cheap, unless you're hiring my law firm, Morrison Rothman LLP, in which case you can get all three.
Do we need to scrub this VOD so Morrison doesn't know that you're referring to his firm as cheap?
Yeah, please don't.
Okay.
Morrison, if you're listening, don't fire me. Who am I kidding? He doesn't pay attention.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah. But so that's the key thing is that I hear constantly this time of year, people telling me, hey, I'm going to do better. I want to be more organized. Well, how do you go about doing that? What caused you pain? Why do you want to do this? What is it going to involve for you to quote unquote do better. And that may be just opening Excel and every time you use a card for travel, logging it. Or maybe it's actually, you know, solely identifying a card, whether it's a credit card or checking account, and using that solely for your business, right?
Yeah. Based on your advice, we actually did that.
I would say I have a credit card two credit cards actually in here that are only used for business.
You should hold them up so we can see them.
Yeah, there's a reason I hold up just the
flip
wallet.
them around.
Listen, I've got this new camera RFID scanner. Can you just like hold it still for a few more seconds, sir?
Oh my God, you guys are stressing me out.
All right, so the other thing we wanted to talk about here is that the goal setting and planning piece is a lot of what Galen does. I think, Noah, correct me if I'm wrong, that you'll have clients asking you various like, hey, should I do this or should I not do this? And you'll give your general professional opinion, but you'll also have the caveat that it's not your area of expertise, right?
Right. Yeah. I like when it comes to tax matters, I am not a tax attorney. I'm not a tax professional. Numbers scare me. And so I send them to you guys.
Is it because of the whole 789 debacle of 1987?
Oh my God. Yeah. When 789, it was just, what is this? Oh, sorry, that's a terrible joke.
No, it's not. How dare you?
Outro.
So what I wanted to do, Galen, is I wanted you to try to kind of like walk us through kind of your onboarding process and how you kind of evaluate and determine, you know, what actually are goals that people have, even though they may not realize it, and whether it's short term or long term.
Yeah. So goals they're one of those things that we all have, even if we haven't expressed them out loud to ourselves, right? We all have things we want to do, but don't always know exactly what it is. So a lot of what I go through with clients, and that you can use yourself to help figure out goals, there's sort of two things. One is just literally a list of common goals, because it's a lot easier to see something and go, oh yeah, of course, than to come up with it yourself. Much like when I'm reading a word in Spanish, I'm much more likely to know what it means than trying to come up with it myself, right? If someone put the word up in Spanish, I'm more likely to be able to read it than if someone put up the English word and said, say the Spanish word.
Right.
It's easier to identify something from a list than to create, basically. So one thing is just look up common lists of business goals, or go to resources or articles that have, you know, hey, here's what they were trying to do, or just
I will tell you what won't work, and that is going on Twitter and doing hashtag goals, because you're going to see a lot of relationship goals, and it's just going to make you really sad if you're, you know,
Oh, well, it is Valentine's Day coming up, or Singles Awareness Day, right?
Yes, in 2.5 weeks or whatever. But so that would be one thing. It's just, frankly, ask other people what their goals are, or use sort of what's your common, how you find yourself evaluating things or yourself. And when you're doing that, make sure that you're looking at things that you have at least some level of control over. So, you know, it's easy when it comes to a streaming business, for instance. It is often easier to set we've talked about this in the past, a good goal being using the acronym GOAL, which is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound, I believe.
Oh, I'm so proud of you for getting all 5 of those.
I mean, this guy did it at TwitchCon, so he's a professional.
I know. Professional.
God, they dropped that on me so shortly before the conference.
They really did, but hey, thank them very much.
But, you know, so when you're looking at setting good goals, look at things that you can control. So not I will be the biggest streamer in the Tarkov directory, but I will stream X number of hours, right?
Yeah.
Because you have much more control over the second one than you do the first. Now, it's an activity that potentially helps with that other one, and it doesn't hurt to talk about that other one as something that you really want to do, but you need to make sure that you're breaking it down into things that you can actually work on and achieve, right?
Yeah. So for example, a good goal would be to say, you know, I'm going to do something every day that furthers my stream, which, whether it is, you know, so on Monday through Friday, that could be, you know, just pressing the go live button. Saturday and Sunday, That could be, working on peripherals. That could be working on anything on the back end, or maybe talking to one of us or something like that.
Yep. And it's you want to set, if you're going to set a big year-long goal, you want to break it down into smaller parts. So like, for instance, if someone says that they want to go on a trip, we might start with that goal of, a common one in the streaming industry is like, take a trip to Japan or something like that, right?
Take a trip to China.
Not right now, please.
Yeah.
But something like take a trip to Japan. Well, okay, then what are the smaller goals that go into that? First question is when. Do some research on when, right? Different times of year have different appeals. You don't want to be trying to go and see, cherry blossoms when they're not blooming. Another one would be doing some work on cost, right? Because then once you have an idea of what your total cost might be based off of what you want to do in Japan, then you have an idea of, okay, you can break it down even further. How much would I need to save each month to get there, right? So starting with those bigger ones is great, but then you want to make sure that you're moving it down into smaller, more actionable steps. The second thing around, and that can also help you determine sort of what is a reasonable shorter term goal that you can focus on and actually achieve versus a longer term goal that is, it's good to have longer term goals and those ambitions, but you need to make sure that you're not just relying on yourself to magically be good at getting shit done in the middle from step A to step Z.
Well, so let's, you kind of talked about this, but I want to be direct on it. In other shows and other things you've done is, a lot of goals for some part-time streamers or some people just starting is like, man, I'd love to be a full-time streamer where, I could make an income doing content creation.
Yeah.
And so, but when it's at odds with lifestyle, so, like, look, you enjoy health insurance and you get to go on like 2 weeks
I don't think anyone
vacation.
enjoys health insurance. They enjoy maybe not
Well,
having to pay for
I think some people
health.
do enjoy health insurance.
The people
I enjoy
who,
having health insurance.
Yeah, when you had to pay out of pocket ever.
Yeah.
And you realize, wait, this sucks. So maybe it's
they enjoy some of the benefits of health insurance. I don't think it's the health insurance itself, right?
Fair nuanced point by Galen. But so how do you kind of approach that when you've got some goals that have been set, but they're in conflict to either lifestyle or, other goals they've stated, like, hey, I'd like to maintain standard of living or et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. So I mentioned the first sort of way that can be really helpful for coming up with goals for yourself is just looking at lists of common goals. So you can see like, oh yes, those actually would be really cool. The second one that I use is an exercise that involves a couple questions designed to help remove constraints, because oftentimes we feel when we're thinking of goals, we're often limited by our constraints, which is a reasonable thing to do, right? It is probably kind of unrealistic to say, I would love to have my own spaceship take me to the moon, because only a couple people on Earth have that money.
Yeah, but think about it. It used to be that nobody had that money.
Exactly.
We've come so far.
We've concentrated so much wealth that now a couple people could go to the moon if they so chose.
That's right.
But so maybe you don't think like quite that ridiculously, but it may be that there are other constraints that are stopping you from picturing goals that would actually be very meaningful to you. So resources is a common one, money, right? So one of the things that I talk about is, one sort of goal setting question to think through is, if money weren't an issue now and in the future, what would you do? What would you change? How would you live your life, right? And this, again, isn't to say you are the richest person on the planet, but it's more of you didn't have to worry day to day about money. And that can be a really revealing question, because sometimes people, actually, frankly, fairly often in streaming say, well, I like what I do. I would keep doing it, but maybe tone it down a bit, right? They wouldn't be live 6 hours a day for 9 hours.
Actually, Aaron and I just had this conversation in preparation for a chat with you upcoming.
Yep.
Which was, hey, what if we won the lottery tomorrow? What would we do with it? And I told her I'd keep going to work because I love what I'm doing, but at the same time, I wouldn't stress as much about it.
Right. Exactly. So there's things like that that can be really revealing about, like, how, because sometimes I would stop doing what I'm doing immediately, right? And that is, while stop doing what I'm doing immediately isn't necessarily the most productive goal, it does give you some insights into what are things that you could potentially start doing that might help you get there, right?
Right.
And same with your
some
business.
clients that would get just cut.
Yeah.
No one who would ever watch this, no one who would ever be in the chat, no one in the industry, but some traditional clients would just like, hey, see you later.
I cut a couple clients last year, and I didn't, and it was not because I didn't have to worry about the money that they were bringing in. But anyway, but freeing yourself of constraints is a good way to think of even business goals, right? If I didn't have to worry about this business making me enough money to live off of, what would I do? What kind of content would I create? What kinds of things would I want to be going on in my community? What events would I go to, right? Who would I work with? That kind of a thing. Because even if those constraints do truly exist, which they do for most of us, right? Knowing what it is that you would do without those constraints can help give you some ideas of the direction, at least, to set your goals.
It's almost kind of like the "who are you and no one's watching" kind of
exactly. Thing. How do you move incrementally towards those things? Because that will probably serve you well, even if it's not something that you can do all in 1 year, or can even maybe realistically have a reasonable expectation of achieving the entirety of it. Often achieving some of it still meaningfully improves your life.
I'm confused about one comment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to exist with no one watching me because I have many voice assistants in my home. I'm on social media, and it is 2020. Please advise.
Listen,
answer off air.
We've already rolled 2 natural 20s to start the year, so let's just keep it going.
Okay, got it.
Bad time. Another constraint that's really common to remove is time, and there's 2 ways to go about it. So a question that I ask all clients who are coming on board is, if you knew that you were going to die in the next 5 to 10 years, not be sick, but die in the next 5 to 10 years, what would you change? What would be different, right? Because that's not...
definitely get that death note and alter that death note.
But again, that's not... this is again to say not...
Well, I would go skydiving. I would go Rocky Mountain climbing. I'd go 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu.
There you go.
And I'd love deeper. And
cut it off. Nope.
That's it. And bridging. This is not to say, oh my God, I have to drop everything now and do it. There's still, for most of us, we don't have 5 to 10 years of savings just sitting there that we could ride out the rest of the way, right? But it does give you, since it does give you less time, then that you have to consider, like, okay, what things would I change? And again, then that gives you that can help give you a sense of what are some reasonable goals for you to take on that might move you incrementally towards that. The final one being another time constraint one, and it's not a what would you do question. It's, if you heard you had only 24 hours left to live, don't ask what you do, because for most of us, that's not realistic to have that, expectation set. It's what didn't you do? If you only had 24 hours left to live, what didn't you get to do? What did you not start or finish? Who didn't you get to become? Because those kinds of questions are also revealing, right? And again, not necessarily revealing something that you need to then run out and do right now, but at least you get to place in your timeline. So like a lot of people, especially in our industry who I'm working with, younger, often not married, it can be things like, I never got to be a husband, wife, spouse. I never got to be a parent. That's not to say run out, grab someone, go to Vegas, immediately try for children, but it's for you to know, okay, maybe then I should take what steps I can to help promote that, including even things like figuring out whether hi Skyla, exactly, the Sims model, things will get pixelated, they'll be rolling, and you're good. But it's again to consider, like, okay, then what are things that I could do that might help move me in that direction? And it's not necessarily go speed dating, but it could be things like perhaps
Go out more.
Or even start working on a schedule that lets me go out more, or
even much less committal, swipe right more.
There you go. Exactly.
Be more open to opportunities that exist around you.
And this, since we were specifically talking about business goals,
3 kinds of people, by the way.
Yeah. Since this is specifically talking about business goals, it can also be things around how much time are you going to put in? What are the kinds of things that can happen to the ways that you can help shape your business that work with you that then also support that lifestyle? Because ultimately the reason that we're doing all of these things is to support a certain lifestyle. Even the reason that we're earning money is a tool, and it's a super useful tool, but it's only a tool, right? It's what you do with the money that actually matters. Those are the goals, and you want to figure out that these kinds of things can help you figure out that piece, which you then slowly trickle down to become applicable and actionable to your day-to-day life. So, personal example, and I see, Ernest, that you have something, and I will get there in a sec. Personal example, my wife and I knew that we wanted to have kids eventually, and we knew that I was really unhappy being an employee somewhere because I hated the fact that there were a good chunk of my days where I sat there with nothing to do, and I was friggin' miserable, right? It's weird to think, like, if you had told younger me, yeah, you just get to sit there and get paid, I would have been like, this is amazing. But really, that gets old after a while, or at least it did for me. So even though it was a very long-term goal, we got married, 5.5 years ago. We've taken shorter term steps that have helped us get to the point where we're at now, like moving back to be near family. Even though it's more expensive, we knew that eventually we would want to have kids. It'd be important to be around family when we had the kids. So we moved from Wisconsin to California, even though it's way more expensive. I went to grad school. I started a business, and all of those things helped contribute to where we are now, which is I'm in a position where right after this call, I'm going to go pick up our daughter from her grandparents' place. I'm going to be doing that during normal work hours. She's been with her grandparents all day, and we have a setup where my wife and I are both still working because that helps support us living in this place where that's possible. None of those were things that happened. Those took 5.5 years at least, right?
You set a bunch of incremental goals, and instead of trying to take one chunk, you chipped away at it, and that's something that I think you can apply towards business every single day.
So when you're thinking about those kinds of goals, try and put it in that context, because that'll I think really help you figure out what it is that actually matters. Baby steps, so to speak.
Baby steps, so to speak.
That's a okay boomer reference for everyone.
That's really good.
Damn it, that is good.
Also, we need to clarify, when you say our child, you're not talking about the three of us. We did not collectively adopt
3 men and a baby. 3 men and a baby.
No. Hold on. I'll do the good dad thing.
So while you're pulling up pictures, we live in a society, what you've said at large.
I love it.
We follow Galen's Twitter if you want to see gorgeous little baby pictures.
So many baby photos. I'm sorry.
But here's my 2 questions for you to outro on you, Galen, is what are the 2 most common goals you see for broadcasters writ large, and what's one of the worst goals you've had and had to walk a broadcaster back from?
The 2 most common goals that I see when it comes to broadcasters, one is the bigger one is feel less stressed and confused by everything that's going on, and the smaller one is have more things that they don't have to do to run their business. And that is hiring us, that's hiring administrative assistants, that is sometimes even things like getting food delivery services or having someone who comes in and cooks. But it's the big thing that I see as a goal for broadcasters consistently, and these are keeping in mind, this is a subset of broadcasters who are doing well enough that it makes sense for them to work with me, which is a narrow part of the market, but it's reclaiming time is the big one, because oftentimes they struggle to even think of goals beyond that because they feel so overwhelmed and stressed and like they have no time that they can't even conceive of what they would do with time. It's like step 1 is just reclaim it. So then we break that down into smaller goals of, okay, how do you reclaim time? This time of year is my business planning time of year with clients, and the bottom question that I have on there is like, what will I outsource in 2020, right? Because it's finding something else that they can give up reasonably that
whether it's a
and
cleaning
by give up I mean
service
have someone else do it.
Yeah, whether it's a cleaning service that saves you 2 hours because it makes sense just from the cost benefit analysis of this is going to cost me $100 every week. It saves me 2-3 hours. My time is worth more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's sort of,
yep, exactly. The second biggest
putting
goal,
value on your time will help you set goals very quickly.
Yes, it will.
So then what's the worst goal then you've heard? Did you have to walk someone back from? Is there any good stories there?
Without breaching privilege.
I'll have to work on this. So I'll work on that one. But the second goal that I see the most is being comfortable enough financially to take the time to find whatever their next thing will be once streaming isn't their main thing. Pretty much everyone I've talked with who is having success at streaming knows it's entertainment and knows that eventually it is unlikely to be their main thing, either because they burn out from it, not to say like stress burnout, but just didn't want to do it anymore.
They feel like they've done everything they can with the platform and the vehicle.
Or their popularity fades, which also happens, right? But they want to be in a position where they can then subsequently not have to jump at the first job offered to them. They want to be able to have time to follow, what they find much more interesting. Worst goal I've had to walk someone back from.
Murdering somebody.
No.
And it could be something as like it just was in direct conflict to everything else they were telling you. And
yeah.
You didn't realize
you're dead in 24 hours. God. What didn't you get to do? See the light fade from someone's eyes.
I haven't gotten that yet, fortunately.
Stare at a mirror as you go. Accomplished.
Oh my God.
Wow. That got dark.
Yeah, that really did. I often see people looking to others for their goals instead of themselves. So it's not that it's an inherently bad goal, it's that it's not theirs. So it's like someone who doesn't really give much of a shit about what they drive because they're a streamer and they sit inside all day, like seeing their friends buying really nice cars and being like, oh, is that something I should do? And it's not just nice cars, but it's whatever. Some people feel it's like, oh man, I haven't traveled enough. It's like, do you like traveling? No, I hate it. Like,
then don't
travel, man. Yeah. Like that's fine.
Try and stay at home as much as possible.
But those are the big ones.
So it's like, we set a personal goal to like do more stuff. But like travel a little bit. But our friends invited us to do an outdoor like 3-day overnight camp.
That's fun.
And well, it is fun, but here's my thing. I hate camping.
Oh.
And so
I like camping.
They were, but we're different people. And so they were like, hey, do you want to do this? And my response was absolutely not. Because I know who I am fundamentally core as a person.
I think Hunter might be firing you.
Listen, I'm wearing flannel to try to impress Hunter. Okay? So
Hunter is the king of flannel.
Listen, okay, so we're going to transition to Noah now. Noah, I want you to scoosh over your legal hat. Okay? And I want you to kind of activate the hat or your Beyblade or your dual deck or what have you of your agency hat. Okay. Sure. So kind of what have you seen in terms of goal setting when it comes from an agent's perspective in working with clients and that kind of arena?
Right. Yeah. So when you're looking from the agency, the management perspective, and you're talking to your clients more about overall growth and building. So when we're talking about financial goals with Galen, we're talking about legal goals and protecting your house with my legal hat. When you're looking at the agency side, you're looking at a brand appeal and stream growth, which everybody wants to increase their brand appeal. Everybody wants to increase their stream growth. Everybody wants to grow, but to grow is not an actionable goal. It's not a smart goal, as we just talked about. So one of the things that I talk to clients about, they say, well, how do I attract these big brands? How do I go about getting how do I go about getting more activations, that kind of thing? How do I find those additional revenue streams so that I can accomplish my short and long-term financial goals? what we do is, you focus a lot on building inroads in your existing community, because you cannot build a community unless you have a base community. And that is paying attention to your chat, that is paying attention to your Discord, doing community events and making sure that you are welcoming people. It's crazy concept, but, just sitting there and being the most absolute best, sniper in COD is not something that's going to build a community.
Well, one thing on that note, I want to ask you, you and Galen might have insight into this. There's that old revenue saying of like the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
80% of your revenue is generated by 20% of your clients.
Right.
And you're kind of saying, look, you have to have a core community. So you may have 10,000 concurrents, right? But
right.
2,000 of them need to be loyal, like members of like that enjoy what you're doing and kind of will support you no matter what game you're playing.
If you want to look it up, 80-20 rule or Pareto principle are the two.
I like it. Type it in the chat. What I would do is I would say that you were looking for, you have 5 people in chat. Say you have 5 people in chat. 4 of them are oftentimes not going to directly support you. The 5th one is going to be that one who subs, who cheers, who donates, that kind of stuff. And but those other 4 might know somebody that's like that 5th one. And as you grow out, as you create a community that wants to bring more people into that community, then that is where you start to be able to do this financially in a sustainable way. Other ways to grow your community is to focus on delivering quality content. That's not just your stream, that's also your emotes, making sure your overlays are great, making sure you're not oversaturating with affiliate links. For example, with this kind of goes perfectly in, you want to decide what categories you want to build in terms of sponsorships. I'm going a little bit fast because we're getting near the end of our time. And so, for example, if you say your goal for this year could be to get a beverage sponsorship, or to get a food sponsor, or to get a periphery sponsor. And so the thing is, though, you don't want to bring on too many at once, because then you'll oversaturate the spending power of your community. It won't look good for anybody. You don't want to squeeze your chat dry. That's part of your community growth, is understanding the limit and not shilling for anything.
Unless it's Play Live month.
Unless it's St. Jude Play Live, in which case do anything for the kids, sell out for the kids. That's it. And so I would also examine, if you are building out from a brand perspective, make sure you're keeping in mind if you were attached to a stream team or some other sort of esports org. You want to make sure that you're not conflicting with your team's categories, but also looking to where you can grow with the team and also outside of the team.
One thing they've done on the stream scene, I know, is like talking about how you manage and your social media presence, right? Your Twitter or Instagram should not just be 900 posts of going live.
Right, exactly.
But the other side is you don't just want to be like overflowing up. Yeah, exactly. So you have to find that balance and what works to build your your community.
Yeah, you don't want to just post pictures of your adorable child, for example, Galen.
But it is on brand.
It is on brand for you. So you wanna make sure you're expanding your revenue streams, which kind of takes you to another avenue, another goal you can set is to have out of this world merchandise. Because if you have cool merch, your community is going to buy your merch. They're going to support you that way. If your merch is out there, then other people are going to buy it. For example, I have a client who they're a new client, but before they were a client, I just enjoyed their merchandise. So I bought something because they have amazing designs. That'll grow your community, and it'll also help you with your revenue streams. Boom.
Nicely
done. What else? So what has been the biggest kind of issue in terms of achieving maybe it's something as simple as like you transition to full-time on the back, and not saying that in a negative way, on community support. And now it's like, look, I want to try to lessen that burden on them, and I want to have some sort of sponsorship. What's been the biggest hurdle to getting a sponsorship, that first one?
So I'll give you an easy answer and a harder answer. An easy answer to that is when you are working on getting your first sponsor, you've never done it before, and you don't have any metrics to show. All you have to show is, this is my chat. They show up every day, and I love them. Thank you all for being here, by the way, chat. I see my dad is actually in chat, so hello, Dad.
Hello, Noah, Dad.
Yeah. So
Papa Noah, we'll go with. I like Papa Noah. Anyway, continue.
Papa Noah, and Father Noah, and so
Too formal.
Too formal. Okay.
Daddy
so,
Noah.
No, that's just
Noah Daddy?
No, that's dirty. No, that's no. Anyway, moving on. Okay. So the harder answer.
Not after that. I'm just kidding. Hunter's like, delete the pod. So, anyways, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, the harder.
You were about
answer.
to give the harder answer to Noah Daddy.
Oh Lord.
Oh no.
No, not great. Okay.
That was bad.
That was great. I'm red.
I
Noah
completely
is
lost
red.
my train of thought.
Okay. Well, I'll tee it back up for you though.
Sorry.
So a question about activations and sponsorships is once you have that, it's very difficult.
Oh, yes.
All you have is your...
Yeah, okay, I remember where I was going. So to get that first one, you want to make sure that you pick something you believe in and something you can honestly get behind, because your chat, your community, in theory, has a connection with you, and you can't sell them a crap product. And so I don't care how much money is offered. Obviously, everybody has their number, but you want to seek out something that you know instinctively you believe in and will integrate well. For example, and this is not a sponsored thing, our good friend McLaffy Taffy sought out Madrina's Coffee because he appreciated what they do in the community and he enjoyed the product. Now, to be fair, he didn't know that he enjoyed the product. He walked up to them at TwitchCon 2 years ago and said, please God, I hope this product is good because I'm about to ask these guys to sponsor me. Turns out it was, and then he did. So the key is getting something that is not going to feel wrong, something that you can actually get behind so your chat will trust you.
And so the reason I brought that up was because, like, we're talking goal setting again, but the question is like, well, look, this is a goal I have. What's been the pain to get there, so you know the smaller incremental steps that you would have to come up with, right? So, and it may be something as bold as going up to a convention booth and saying like, hey, this is me, this is my community, I have this many concurrents, et cetera, and like, is there something we can do to work together?
Right? Exactly. It's also knowing what your strength is, because it's not always about, you know, your concurrence. Yes, concurrent viewership is important, and if it's the only metric you have, you should use it. But you also want to tout, you know, engagement levels on different platforms. You want to tout who shows up and when, and how many viewable minutes you have, that kind of thing. And you also want to show up with a plan. And so your first goal there would be to identify targets, come up with a plan for each of them, and not make it a generic plan that you use for all of them. It's something that's specific to each one.
Not I stream good, you make money, I make money.
Right. That is not going to work. That is the way you get affiliate deals. And affiliate deals, not great.
I mean, and not to diminish anyone with an affiliate deal, but those are, they're because low-hanging fruit, because there's no risk by the company, right? Like, they don't have to pay a dime out to you until they've actually sold products, so they're making money. Right? Whereas them taking a chance on you and giving you an activation is very different.
Actually, there is an affiliate deal going on right now out there that I've seen. I can't name the company, unfortunately. But there's one going on where they will give you a code, and then they will give you a 30% off of their product.
So they don't even give you...
the broadcaster?
Yeah, they don't give you free product. They give you 30% off their product and give you a code to shill it. So you don't get to try it. And you also have to buy it.
I would be curious to know how that qualifies, this for another show, but how that qualifies for the hashtag ad rules that we did at the end of...
Still year. Hashtag ad, because you're receiving a benefit for it, because, you know, a discount is a benefit.
Gotcha. Interesting. So. Any other things you want to touch on? Pain points, like agency goals, anything that you've seen that have been like bad in terms of goal setting, Noah?
Yeah, I would generally say people go out there and they say, you know, they see, you know, G Fuel has sponsored 1 million people. And this, you know, this person got a huge G Fuel sponsorship. And they say, I want to go there. Well, no, you don't want to go there, because G Fuel just blew their entire budget on one person. You want to go to where the money has not been spent yet, or where it has not recently been spent, and it's looking for some refreshing things, which is why you make note of what's available now and then take down that goal and work towards it in the future, because it's going to change.
So the approach of content creation, right? A good content creator will tell you, look, I'm not going to give the community what they think they want. I'm going to give them what they want, but they don't know it yet.
Right, exactly.
So I'm going to go to brands that don't know they need me yet. Right, that kind of concept that haven't blown, like everyone knows those big brands, G Fuel, Red Bull, Monster, Madrinas to an extent has saturated the market, right? Like people are familiar with these brands. If you're just starting, you may want to find a brand that is a good fit for you that is not well known.
Right.
That, and to your point, that the community does like as well. That would be a good fit.
Yeah.
Okay. Any horror stories about goal settings gone awry you want to share as a good like little intro?
None that I'm allowed to share.
Even if you change the names and faces, like Dragnet?
Yeah, I can't do that.
All right. Understood.
You know what? Someday you buy me a drink and we'll have a good time.
That's basically what PAX South was. It was only people who'd been there a bunch before, so we just drank and talked about interesting stories.
I'm very sad that I didn't get to go to PAX South this time. And what will happen is I will get to go next year, and nobody
will go.
Yeah.
The good news is I'm probably going to go to PAX South next year regardless, just because the entire trip costs less than my hotel for East or West. So.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah.
It's because it's San Antonio in January. Who the hell wants to go there then? I spent I split a hotel room, was there for 4 nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, yeah. And it was $250 for the hotel for 4 nights.
Wow.
That's ridiculous. So yes. I wanted to say, I think we've got through all of our talking points. While we wax poetic about any other closing thoughts and exits, if there are any questions, feel free to throw them into the chat in terms of like things we've seen or goal setting or anything at all. As always, feel free to give us any topic recommendations if there's anything pressing you've read or have concerns about that you think would make a good show. And then I'll turn it back over to Galen because I kind of just took the reins from him. So
I'm fine with that. That makes my life easier.
I really haven't seen very many questions through this.
No, we've been talking more about goals and like a specific technical topic. One thing, I mean, I would sort of the summary piece I'd give you though is the biggest thing when it comes to doing goal setting is actually taking the time to do it. Because like I said, it's something, goals are something that we all have, stated or not. And stated even to ourselves or not. So that's not the issue. The issue isn't a lack of goals, but but make sure you take the time to actually document them, outline a plan of attack for them, depending on who's involved, tell them to other people or not. Right.
Yeah, that's good. What I would say is that's a good way to say, like, what's your big idea from this kind of topic? So I'll cue you, Noah, while I kind of answer it. So you can think about like what your big idea would be in terms of goal setting. And mine would be, don't get too down on yourself for lacking in the hitting of the goal, whether it's sub count, revenue goal, networking, meeting people, and it doesn't go the precise way in your mind that it should have been. This is something that I've had to work on personally. Is this like, Galen knows that the first time I met him at TwitchCon 3 years ago, like I had every minute of the con mapped out and I was going to hit like these sort of benchmarks, both quantitatively and qualitatively. And I've kind of relaxed a little bit and kind of let things come to me more naturally than try to force the world to bend to my will.
You and I should have talked before that, because my philosophy is just kind of wing it and hope something comes up.
I've moved more in that direction.
Yeah, I've moved more in that direction.
At conferences, at least.
The other thing I do is I will casually tell like friends things that I'm trying to do, whether it's a goal. And it might be very abstract and not the actual goal, in a way that like I've spoken it out into the world and now I'm accountable to them to a certain extent. Because if you're friends with people, they'll ask you like, hey, how did that work out? How did that go? And so that's something I've done.
And not even just on the accountability side, but other people can be super helpful, right? Like,
right.
There can be things that are like major goals for me, or just things that I want to get done or learn, that someone else could take care of like that. So sometimes just talking about what you're trying to do, someone will be like, oh, I know how to do that. And then you're good. Yep. That happens that every time I've looked at setting up something technical with streaming, with my PC, even in the business, right? When I talk about the fact that I'm looking to do that, there's often someone who's like, oh yeah, I can help you with that. And boom, it's done like 10 times faster.
I mean, that's all well and good. I put the call on Twitter like, hey, standing desk recommendations and stuff. And I didn't tell you this. I assembled it backwards when I first did it. So very good. So
you told
Noah,
me that.
Yeah, not great. Noah, what do you got? Big idea. Goal set.
I make it manageable. Make it something that you don't say, hey, this is my 2020 goal. Say, hey, this is my goal for this week. And the way you do that is to say, here is the big goal. And then you break it down into what you need to accomplish to get to that goal. And then you figure out what a realistic expectation to hit each of those benchmarks is. And if it comes up and say you need 60 weeks to get that goal based on the small benchmarks, give yourself that time. That's more than a year. But allow yourself to accomplish that goal and not rush it. So make it manageable. Otherwise, it's going to be too daunting and you'll be done before you start.
Yeah, I like that, because one thing I was listening to someone else's point is that, people make fun of New Year's resolutions and get down on themselves or others, like when they don't meet them. But like, say you only do that for 2 months or 3 months of the year, you're for a quarter of the year, you've made steps to make yourself a better person. And so over the course of your lifetime, say you live to 80, just a random age, that you've been taking 20 years of your life trying to be a better person. So I think that's admirable, right?
Yeah.
So, all right.
That's really good. That's really deep. We've gone deep a few times.
We're good. All right.
So Galen.
I didn't see any questions. So do we want to do outros?
Yeah, Ernest, who are you?
I am Ernest Jones. I wear flannel at Hunter's Demand.
And it's confusing the hell out of your camera.
It is.
The colors in your background are swapping back and forth because of the flannel.
Awesome.
Did not notice that. Okay, note for me next time. But I'm a CPA. I help people in the industry do tax planning, tax compliance, things like that. And so that's me.
Noah?
I'm Noah Downs. I'm a lawyer at Morrison Rothman LLP. You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/MyLawyerFriend, where I give mediocre advice and information all and
Don't you help little creeps out, right, or something?
I don't. I do not. Okay, I don't. Maybe some of them. But anyways, so you can find me there. I do the law thing. I'm good at it, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about anything ever. If you need a free consult, shoot me an email or DM me on Twitter. I'm happy to give out free consults and make sure that you are taken care of.
All right. I'm Galen Herbst at Cortina. I run a financial planning firm that focuses on broadcasters.
What's it called?
Buff Your Finances.
What's
LLC. And this kind of goals discussion is actually a huge part of what we do. Like I said, right now I'm in the middle of doing business planning meetings with clients where they're 2-hour-long sessions where we basically walk through a lot of this kind of thing. Because it takes that long. Anyways, this is Your Brand, Your Business. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And we will be back next week.
Go Niners.
Bye, y'all.